My daughter looked me dead in the eyes across that courtroom and said I deserved nothing, that I'd stolen from her mother while she lay dying. She had lawyers, doctors, an entire town believing her lies. Then Floyd walked through those doors carrying a USB drive, plugged it into the courtroom speakers, and my dead wife's voice filled the room. What Lorraine said next made Shelby scream for them to stop the recording. I am truly grateful you are here. If this story already speaks to you, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I read every single one, and it reminds me, we are not alone in stories like this. Please keep in mind that certain details in this story are dramatized for learning and narrative clarity. Any similarity to real names or settings is coincidental, but the lesson behind it is important. The courtroom had gone still. Not quiet. Still. The kind of silence that presses against your chest like a hand. 200 people packed into Davidson County Courthouse, and not one of them breathed. Floyd Bishop stood at the witness stand in his old white vest, the one he used to wear during recording sessions at our studio 30 years ago. His weathered hands were steady as he connected that USB drive to the courtroom audio system. He did not rush. Floyd never rushed anything when it came to sound. He understood better than anyone that what was about to play would either save me or destroy the last thing I had left of Lorraine. The speakers crackled once, then her voice came through. Clear, present, alive in a way that made my throat close and my eyes burn. Lorraine. My Lorraine. Speaking from somewhere beyond death, beyond disease, beyond everything that had tried to silence her. And the words she chose were not gentle. Shelby's face drained of color the moment she recognized her mother's voice. I watched my daughter grip the edge of the defendant's table so hard her knuckles went bone white. Her lawyer leaned in, whispered something urgent. Shelby shook her head. No. She was staring at the speakers like they had opened a door she thought she had sealed shut forever. Then came the recording that ended everything. Lorraine's voice, thin but razor sharp. Shelby, I remember everything. I am sick, not stupid. And I am recording this. My daughter shot to her feet. Turn it off. Her voice cracked across the silent courtroom. Turn it off. Turn it off. Judge Harrison's gavel came down. Once. Twice. Order. The witness testimony will continue. Sit down, Miss Thornton. Shelby did not sit. She stood there trembling, tears cutting lines through her foundation, while 200 strangers watched her unravel. And Lorraine's voice kept going. Steady. Unbreakable. Saying everything I had needed the world to hear for 2 months. But I am getting ahead of myself. That moment in the courtroom, that was the end of the story, or close to it. Let me take you back to the beginning, back to the silence that came before the sound. 2 months earlier, I stood in the center of our recording studio at the farm on Old Hickory Boulevard, 20 miles outside Nashville, 40 acres of Tennessee countryside that Lorraine and I had bought in 1989 with the advance from our first platinum record. The morning light came through the skylight the way it always did, casting gold across the mixing console, the microphone stands, the rack of guitars along the far wall. Everything in that room held her fingerprints. The leather chair where she sat during playback sessions, the upright piano in the corner where she composed melodies while I built arrangements around them, the faded concert poster from our first #1, framed above the doorway. Lorraine and Walt Brennan. Live at the Bluebird Cafe, September 1989. 3 weeks since I had buried her. 3 weeks since heart failure finally took the woman who had been my partner in everything for 35 years. And I still could not bring myself to move anything. The coffee mug on the console still had a ring of dried chamomile tea at the bottom. Her reading glasses sat folded on top of a lyric notebook. The red light above the vocal booth was off, but I kept expecting it to flicker on. Kept expecting to hear her voice through the monitors saying, "One more take, Walt. I can do better." She always could. That was Lorraine. Never satisfied with good enough. Always reaching for the version that made you feel something you could not name. The farm was quiet in a way that felt permanent. No songbirds at the feeder Lorraine maintained for 20 years. No wind chimes on the porch. Just the hum of electricity through old wiring and the occasional creak of a house settling into its bones. I had lost weight, could not remember the last full meal I had eaten. Sleep came in fragments. 2 hours here, 90 minutes there, always interrupted by the reach across the bed toward a body that was not there anymore. That morning I found myself drawn to the piano. Not to play. I had not played since the funeral, but something pulled me there. The bench was mahogany, handmade by a luthier in Knoxville as a wedding gift. Lorraine kept sheet music inside it, old arrangements we had worked on together. Napkin sketches of melodies from late-night sessions that turned into Grammy-nominated songs. I lifted the lid. Sheet music, yes. But beneath the stack of papers, my fingers found something else. A cream-colored envelope, tucked flat against the bottom of the bench. Hidden, deliberately placed where only someone who knew to look would find it. The handwriting on the front was shaky. Weaker than the bold script I remembered from 35 years of birthday cards and love notes tucked into my guitar case before tours. But unmistakable. For Walt. When you need to remember what is real, my hands trembled. The envelope was sealed with the kind of care that meant whatever was inside had been written with full intention. I turned it over. On the back, a date, January 12th, 2024. 3 months before she died. 3 months before heart failure took her body. Lorraine had sat at this piano bench, written me a letter, and hidden it where she knew I would eventually find it. She had known something was coming, and she had tried to warn me. I sank onto the bench, the envelope heavy in my hands, the studio silent around me. Outside, Tennessee carried on with its morning. Birds I could not hear. A world I could not reach. In my hands, a dead woman's warning about a war I did not yet know I was fighting. I broke the seal. My dearest Walt, if you are reading this, I am gone. And if I know you, you found this because you finally sat at the piano again. I hope it was not too long. Music needs you, even when I cannot be there to hear it anymore. I need to tell you something while my mind is still clear. The doctors say my heart is failing, and I feel it. Some days I am so tired, I cannot lift my hand to the keys. But my mind, Walt, my mind is sharp. I need you to remember that, no matter what anyone says later. I am writing this on a good day, a strong day, and I know exactly what I am doing. Blake does not love our daughter. He loves what we own. I have watched him for 2 years now, the way he looks at this farm, at the studio, at the catalog numbers on our royalty statements. He asks questions that no son-in-law should ask. How much is the master's catalog worth? Whether the publishing rights transfer upon death. What the farm would sell for, if subdivided. He thinks I do not notice, because I am sick. But being sick made me pay closer attention, not less. Shelby cannot see it. Or she does not want to. She has changed since Blake came into her life. She calls less, visits less. When she does come, she brings papers, questions, never flowers, never just herself. I am afraid of what they will do when I am gone. I am afraid they will come for everything we built together. The songs, the studio, this land where we raised our girl and made our music. Protect it, my love. Not for the money. For us. For what these walls heard. For every melody that was born in that room. For the 35 years we poured into something real. I have taken steps. Floyd knows. Trust Floyd. He has something for you. When the time comes, he will know what to do. I wish I could fight beside you. But you are stronger than you think. You always were. The quiet ones always are. All my love, forever and past it, Lorraine. The letter blurred. I pressed my palm against my eyes and felt the wetness there, hot against my skin. She had known. Sitting at this very piano bench 3 months before she died, her heart failing inside her chest, Lorraine had seen exactly what was coming. She had tried to prepare me for a battle I could not yet imagine. I read the letter twice more. Each time, her voice came through clearer. Not the thin, breathless voice of her final months, but the full, rich voice I remembered from studio sessions and kitchen conversations and 35 years of waking up beside her. I folded the letter carefully, slid it back into its envelope, and held it against my chest. Outside the studio, the farm stretched quiet under mid-morning sun. The 200-year-old oak Lorraine called her thinking tree cast long shadows across the gravel drive. Somewhere beyond the tree line, a tractor hummed on a neighbor's property. Normal sounds. A normal day. Except nothing was normal anymore. The doorbell rang. Sharp. Insistent. The kind of ring that comes from someone pressing the button twice, because once was not enough. I walked through the farmhouse to the front door. Through the sidelight glass, I could make out a man in a brown uniform. Clipboard raised. Delivery truck idling in the driveway. Walter Brennan. Yes. Sign here, please. The envelope he handed me was thick, heavy in a way that had nothing to do with paper weight. The return address made my stomach drop. Kingsley, Thornton, and Associates. Attorneys at law. Nashville, Tennessee. Thornton. Blake's last name on a law firm letterhead. I carried both envelopes to the kitchen table. Lorraine's letter in one hand, this new package in the other. For a long moment, I just stared at them. One from my wife, warning me about a storm. One from my daughter's people, bringing the storm to my door. I opened it. Emergency petition for asset transfer and conservatorship. Shelby Thornton versus Walter Brennan. The words jumped from the page in bold type. Elder financial exploitation. Undue influence during period of cognitive impairment. Misappropriation of jointly held assets. Immediate freeze of all estate accounts, real property, and intellectual property pending investigation. My daughter was suing me. Not just suing. She was accusing me of exploiting her dying mother, of manipulating a woman weakened by heart failure into redirecting $4.2 million in music assets, of stealing what should have been rightfully shared. I read through the petition twice. My hands shook harder with each page. According to the document, I had isolated Lorraine from family, prevented Shelby from visiting, coerced my wife into changing estate documents during a period when cardiac-induced brain fog rendered her mentally incompetent. Every word was a lie. Every word would need to be defended in court. I grabbed my phone and called Shelby. Straight to voicemail. Her professional voice, clipped and distant. The same tone she used in business meetings with artists at the label. Shelby, it is your father. I just got the papers. We need to talk. Please call me back. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She was not going to answer. She had already chosen her side. I set the phone down and looked at the petition again. The response deadline glared from the bottom of the final page. 48 hours to file an answer or risk default judgment. 2 days. I had 2 days to find a lawyer, to gather documentation, to build a defense against my own child. 2 days to figure out how to fight for the farm Lorraine and I had bought when Shelby was 3 years old. For the studio where we had written songs that played on radios across the world. For the catalog of music that represented 35 years of our creative life together. 2 days. And my daughter's husband was a lawyer with connections I could not begin to match. Blake had built this machine, and he had set it in motion before Lorraine's body was even cold. I spread both letters on the kitchen table. Lorraine's warning. Shelby's declaration of war. The afternoon light shifted through the kitchen window, casting long shadows across the wood surface. Outside, Tennessee moved forward with its day. The oak tree swayed. The gravel drive sat empty. I stared at my daughter's name printed in cold legal type. At the accusations that would drag me into a courtroom to defend my love for my wife, Lorraine's words echoed in my mind. Protect it, my love. Not for the money. For us. I had 2 days. I did not know where to begin. 3 days passed, and I still did not have a plan. The steps of the Davidson County Courthouse felt steeper than they should have. As I climbed toward the entrance that Thursday morning, my right hand gripped the iron railing. My left clutched a manila folder so thin it embarrassed me. Inside was everything I had managed to gather in 72 frantic hours. Lorraine's death certificate, our marriage license, a handful of bank statements, receipts for medical equipment. It was not enough. I knew it was not enough. The folder had cost me 3 sleepless nights and 11 unanswered calls to attorneys across Nashville. Every estate lawyer I contacted either wanted a retainer I could not produce with frozen accounts or already had connections to Blake's firm. In the end, the court assigned me someone. A public defender named Craig Ellison, mid-30s. Overworked. We met for exactly 20 minutes in a conference room that smelled like floor wax and burnt coffee. "Just be honest," he told me. "The judge will see you are a good man." I wanted to believe him. Then I walked into the courtroom. Shelby sat at the plaintiff's table. Tailored charcoal blazer. Pearl earrings Lorraine had given her for her 30th birthday. Controlled. Polished. Beside her sat Marcus Webb, the attorney Blake had selected. Mid-50s. Silver temples. A suit that cost more than my truck payment. His leather briefcase sat open, thick with documents, organized by colored tabs. I started toward her. "Shelby." She turned her head just enough that I knew she heard. Then she looked away, back to her papers. She did not acknowledge that the man calling her name was the one who taught her first guitar chord, who drove her to songwriting camp every summer, who held her mother's hand in the hospital while Shelby answered work emails in the waiting room. "All rise." Judge Henderson entered. 60-something. Lean face. Steady expression. 3 decades of Nashville's ugliest disputes behind those eyes. He opened the file. Emergency petition for asset transfer. Thornton versus Brennan. Counsel. Proceed. Marcus Webb rose with the confidence of a man who billed $600 an hour. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward matter of protecting a vulnerable estate. Lorraine Brennan passed away 5 weeks ago after a 2-year battle with congestive heart failure. During that period, my client observed concerning financial activity directed by the respondent. Large transfers from joint accounts. Changes to intellectual property ownership. Estate modifications executed during a period when Mrs. Brennan's cardiac condition severely compromised her cognitive function." He paused. "We are here to ensure Mrs. Brennan's true wishes are honored. The petitioner requests a temporary freeze on all estate assets, including the music catalog valued at $4.2 million. He sat. Craig stood. His chair scraped the floor. "Your Honor, Mr. Brennan was a devoted husband. Any financial activity during that time was solely for her medical benefit. Does your client have documentation?" Judge Henderson's voice was direct. "We are working on compiling. I will take that as not yet." The judge turned to Webb. "You mentioned cognitive impairment. Medical testimony?" "Yes, Your Honor. The petitioner calls Dr. Rajesh Patel, cardiologist, Vanderbilt Medical Center." My stomach dropped. Patel had been Lorraine's cardiologist for 2 years. She had trusted him. I had trusted him. Now he walked to the witness stand, took the oath, and sat with his hands folded over a medical file. "Dr. Patel," Webb asked, "was Lorraine Brennan capable of making sound decisions during the final 12 months of her life?" Something flickered across Patel's face. A tightness around his eyes that lasted less than a second. Then it vanished. "No. Patients with advanced congestive heart failure experience chronic cerebral hypoperfusion. Reduced blood flow to the brain causes progressive cognitive impairment, brain fog, confusion. In my assessment, Mrs. Brennan lacked capacity to make complex decisions during that period." The words hit me like a fist. I gripped the table until my knuckles ached. Because I remembered. 3 months before Lorraine died, I found her at the piano one evening. Weak, all day. Could barely walk to the studio. But she was sitting upright, eyes bright, fingers moving with the precision of 50 years of playing. She looked up and smiled. "Listen to this, Walt. I think it is the best thing I have ever written." She played me a melody that made me cry. The mind that composed that piece was not fogged, not confused, not impaired. But how do you prove a melody to a courtroom? Craig's cross-examination lasted 90 seconds. Is it possible she had good days? Possible, but clinically unreliable. No further questions. Judge Henderson reviewed his file. Based on medical testimony and the absence of countering documentation, I am ordering a temporary freeze on all estate assets, including real property, financial accounts, and intellectual property rights, pending full hearing. The gavel came down. Everything Lorraine and I had spent 35 years building. Locked behind a court order because a doctor said my wife's brain did not work when I knew it did. The courtroom emptied. Craig mumbled about next steps. His voice sounded underwater. I watched Shelby stand. Smooth her blazer. Gather her portfolio like someone closing a quarterly report. She walked toward the exit without looking back. Outside, through glass doors, Blake's black Mercedes idled at the curb. He sat behind the wheel, phone to his ear, smiling. Shelby climbed in. The door shut. The car pulled into traffic and disappeared. She left like someone who had just closed a deal. Not like someone who had just taken her dead mother's estate from her father. By Monday, I would discover the courtroom was only the beginning. The real attack had already been spreading through Nashville like a virus, and it started before I ever opened that envelope. The rumors spread faster than any hit record I ever produced. By Monday morning, 4 days after the hearing, it seemed like half of Nashville's music community had already made up their minds about me. I arrived at Belmont Community College at 8 that morning, the way I had every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 years. Teaching introductory guitar and songwriting to continuing education students was never about the money. Lorraine used to joke that my teaching fee would not cover our grocery bill. But it kept me connected. Gave me a reason to shower, get dressed, drive somewhere that was not the empty farm. 18 students waited in the practice room when I walked in. I set my materials on the desk and turned to write the day's chord progression on the whiteboard. Behind me, the murmuring stopped. I glanced over my shoulder. Faces stared back. Some curious, some uncomfortable. 2 girls in the back row whispered behind their hands. A young man I had been mentoring for 3 months suddenly found his guitar tuner incredibly interesting. I cleared my throat. Let us pick up where we left off. Open voicings in the key of G. The class dragged. Questions I asked hung in the air too long. Every demonstration felt like performing for an audience that had already decided the show was not worth watching. By the time I dismissed them, my jaw ached from keeping my expression neutral. Department Chair Linda Forsyth caught me in the hallway. "Walt, do you have a minute?" I followed her into her office. She could not meet my eyes. "We have received some calls. Parents, students. There are concerns about." She trailed off, rearranging papers on her desk. "Maybe it would be best if you took a leave of absence. Just until things settle. You are asking me to stop teaching. I am asking you to let this pass. For your own sake. People are talking, Walt. And right now, the optics." She did not finish. She did not have to. I walked out with my teaching binder under my arm and 20 years of student thank you cards suddenly worth nothing. The next morning, I drove to the Bluebird Cafe. Not the famous one on Hillsborough Pike, but the little coffee shop on 12th Avenue South that Lorraine and I had made our regular spot for 20 years. Wednesday mornings. 2 black coffees. A window booth where we used to edit lyrics together on napkins. I walked in alone. Ordered my usual. Sat at our booth. 3 tables away. Danny Schofield and Mike Parr sat together. Both producers I had worked with for decades. Danny saw me first. made eye contact for half a second, then leaned toward Mike and said something low. They both looked down at their phones. Neither came over. Neither waved. Neither acknowledged 30 years of studio sessions, late-night mixing, Christmas parties at each other's homes. I drank my coffee and left cash on the table. Did not stay for a second cup. Sunday came. I went to Grace Fellowship, out of habit more than faith. Lorraine had sung in the choir for 15 years, organized the annual benefit concert for foster children, played piano at the early service until her hands could no longer reach the keys. After she got sick, the congregation had been relentless with their kindness. Meals delivered every other day. Prayer chains. Visits. I slipped into our usual pew. Behind me, two women I recognized from Lorraine's choir cut their conversation short. Heard it was gambling debts. No. I heard he was siphoning money into a separate account the whole time she was. The fragments drifted forward like broken glass, each one landing sharp. I kept my eyes on the hymnal. My hands gripped the wooden pew until my knuckles went white. After the service, I did not stay for coffee hour. That evening, I opened my laptop. I rarely used it except for email. But something was feeding these rumors. Someone was planting seeds, and they were growing in soil I could not see. It took me 10 minutes to find the Nashville Music Community Group on Facebook. 1,400 members. A post from 4 days ago, the same day as my hearing. Does anyone know Walt Brennan out on Old Hickory? Hearing some disturbing things about finances during his wife's illness. Sad when someone takes advantage of a dying woman's trust. 67 comments. Most from people I had never met, repeating variations of the same lies. Gambling, hidden accounts, forged signatures, emotional abuse. A few strangers defended me, saying people should not judge without facts, but they were buried under the avalanche of accusation. I scrolled further. Another post from a different anonymous account. Friend of mine works at Vanderbilt Cardiology. Says Lorraine Brennan came in confused and disoriented every visit. Husband always insisted on speaking for her. Just saying. My vision blurred. Lorraine had never been confused at her appointments. Tired. Yes. Short of breath. Yes. But she spoke for herself every single time. She insisted on it. That was who she was. I refreshed the page. More comments appeared. Someone claimed they saw me at a Nashville casino. Someone else said Lorraine had confided in them about controlling behavior. A third person said I had pressured her cardiologist to lie about her prognosis. None of it was true. All of it was spreading. I closed the laptop and sat in the kitchen. Lorraine's chair across from me. Empty. Her wind chimed silent on the porch outside. The farm pressed in around me. Every room full of absence. Someone wanted Nashville to turn its back on me. And whoever it was, they were winning. The phone call from Nashville Electric came on a Tuesday morning. Mr. Brennan, this is regarding your account at Old Hickory Boulevard. Your service will be disconnected in 10 days, without payment. I stared at the stack of envelopes on the kitchen table. They had been accumulating since the hearing. Each one, a small emergency I could not solve. Property tax notice on top. $9,200 due in 28 days. Water. Internet. The mortgage payment coming due at the end of the month. Insurance on the farm. Insurance on the studio equipment. Each envelope another piece of a life. I was slowly losing the ability to maintain. I will take care of it, I told the woman. Though I had no idea how. That afternoon I drove to First Horizon Bank on West End, where Lorraine and I had kept our accounts for 30 years. The teller smiled when I walked in. The smile faded when I explained what I needed. I need to withdraw from our savings, enough to cover the property tax and utilities. She typed into her computer. Mr. Brennan, I am sorry. There is a court-ordered freeze on all accounts associated with the estate. I cannot process any withdrawals from those funds. What about my personal checking account? More typing. That one is accessible. Current balance is $9,812. 2 years of caring for Lorraine had drained nearly everything. The medical bills that insurance did not cover. The home modifications. The round-the-clock care during her final months. I did the math sitting in that bank chair. Property tax alone would take almost everything. After that, there would be nothing left for mortgage, for utilities, for groceries. The numbers did not work. They were not close to working. I drove south on Gallatin Pike in a fog. The pawn shop sat between a barbecue joint and a tire store. A place I had passed 1,000 times in 30 years without ever considering walking inside. Now I pulled into the lot and sat in my truck for 5 minutes, trying to convince myself this was not happening. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed over glass cases. Guitars hung on the wall. Power tools, watches. Other people's histories reduced to price tags. The man behind the counter looked up from his phone. "Help you?" I set them down one at a time. My father's 1962 Gibson J. 45. Sunburst finish. The guitar he played at the Ryman Auditorium in 1968. Opening for Johnny Cash. I learned my first chords on that guitar. Wrote my first song on it at 16. Lorraine said the sound of it was what made her fall in love with me the night we met at the Bluebird. Next to it I placed the watch. Gold face. Leather band. Engraved on the back in Lorraine's handwriting. Every song starts with you. Love. L. She had saved for 3 months on her publishing royalties to buy it for our 20th anniversary. The man examined each item with the detachment of someone who did this 100 times a week. I can do $1,200 for both. $1,200. For my father's legacy and 20 years of love, compressed into metal and wood. Okay. He counted out cash while I signed paperwork. When I walked out, the guitar and the watch stayed behind on the counter under those fluorescent lights. I did not look back. Looking back would have broken something I could not afford to break. That evening, Beverly Chen knocked on my door. She lived 2 properties down. Had been our neighbor for 18 years. Lorraine's walking partner every morning, until the walks became impossible. Beverly had been at the funeral. Tears streaming. Hugging me. Promising to check in. She stood on my porch with a casserole dish and worry on her face. "Walt, I heard about the teaching position. Are you okay?" I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table. I told her about the asset freeze, the bills, the bank. She listened without interrupting, the way good neighbors do. Then she noticed the envelope I had not yet opened. It sat at the bottom of the stack, larger than the others. No stamp. Hand-delivered. From a company I had never heard of. Cumberland Sound Medical Services, LLC. "What is that one?" I opened it. Inside was a billing statement. Final notice. Overdue balance. $94,000 for medical equipment, delivered during patient care. Lorraine Brennan. I scanned the itemized list. Hospital bed. $12,000. Oxygen concentrator. $9,000. Cardiac monitoring system. $18,000. Specialized mattress. $7,500. The list covered 2 full pages. Equipment I did not remember ordering. Delivered on dates that made no sense. Beverly leaned over my shoulder, reading. She had spent 22 years as an accounts manager at a medical billing company before retiring. Her eyes narrowed. "Walt, some of these delivery dates are from after Lorraine passed." I checked. She was right. 3 items listed delivery dates in late April. Lorraine died April 8th. Beverly pulled the letterhead closer. "And this company, Cumberland Sound Medical Services." She typed the address into her phone. "Walt, this address. It is the Pinnacle Tower on Church Street." She looked up at me. "That is Blake Thornton's office building." Same floor. We stared at each other across the kitchen table. The fake medical bill. The rumors spreading through Nashville. The lawsuit filed days after the funeral. The doctor who lied about my wife's mind. This was not grief. This was not a family disagreement. Someone had built a machine designed to crush me, piece by piece, lie by lie. And it had been running long before Lorraine took her last breath. That night I sat in the studio with every light off, just me and the darkness and the ghosts of 1,000 recording sessions that lived inside those walls. The mixing console was cold under my palms. No signal running through it. No meters dancing green and amber. No sound at all except my own breathing and the distant hum of crickets through the studio's thick glass windows. I had not turned on any equipment since Lorraine died. Could not bring myself to hear the silence that came from speakers that used to carry her voice. The vocal booth stood empty to my left, its padded walls still holding the faint impression of her presence. She used to stand in there with her eyes closed, headphones pressed tight, singing scratch vocals for arrangements I was building. Sometimes, she would open her eyes mid-phrase and look at me through the glass. Smile. Keep singing. 1991. That was the first time. We had just signed our publishing deal. Rented studio time, we could not afford to cut a demo. Lorraine stepped up to the microphone in that rented room on Music Row, and the engineer, a young kid named Floyd Bishop, looked at me through the control room glass and mouthed the words, "Where did you find her?" I found her at the Bluebird Cafe on a Tuesday open mic night. September 14th, 1989. She played a song she wrote on a borrowed guitar, and I forgot how to breathe for 3.5 minutes. Now the studio we built together sat silent. The Grammy on the shelf above the console caught a sliver of moonlight through the skylight. The platinum records on the wall, the framed photograph of Lorraine and me at the CMA Awards. 1997. Her red dress. My rented tux. Both of us laughing at something I could no longer remember. I had been sitting there for 2 hours. Maybe 3. Time moved differently in grief. The discovery about Cumberland Sound Medical Services had not made me angry. It should have. But anger required energy I did not have. Instead, I felt hollowed out, scraped clean of everything except exhaustion. I spoke into the darkness. "I cannot do this, Lorraine. I do not know how to fight people with lawyers and fake companies and an entire city believing lies about me." No answer. Of course, no answer. Just the crickets. Just the moonlight shifting across the console. Maybe I should let them have it. The thought arrived with a strange calmness. The farm. The catalog. The studio. All of it. What did any of it mean without her? Music without Lorraine was just sound. This room without her voice was just walls and wires. Maybe Shelby was right to want it. Maybe she deserved it more than a 63-year-old man sitting alone in the dark talking to no one. I had almost convinced myself. Almost made peace with surrender. Then I heard it. 3 knocks on the studio door. Solid. Deliberate. Spaced evenly. The way a sound engineer knocks. Precise. I checked my watch. 11:14 at night. I opened the door. Floyd Bishop stood on the step. 65 years old. White hair cropped short, still wearing his work jacket, the canvas one with the audio company patch on the chest. He had retired from touring 5 years ago but still did freelance mixing for indie artists who could not afford Nashville's studio rates. Floyd and I had worked together since that first session in 1991. 33 years. He had mixed every album Lorraine and I produced. Been at our wedding. At Shelby's christening. At Lorraine's funeral. Where he stood in the back row and cried without making a sound. Now he looked at me with eyes that held something I could not immediately name. Not pity. Something more purposeful than that. "Walt. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He walked into the dark studio, did not bother reaching for the light switch. We had spent too many years working in dim rooms together. Darkness was comfortable between us. He sat in the producer's chair beside the console. I leaned against the vocal booth door frame. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Floyd reached into the inside pocket of his canvas jacket and pulled out something small. He set it on the mixing console with a soft click against the wood surface. An iPhone. Old model. Cracked screen protector. Familiar rose gold case that I recognized immediately as Lorraine's. Floyd's voice was quiet, steady. She gave me this 8 months ago, October, one of her strong days. Said she had been using it for something important. Said, I was not to tell you. Not yet. I stared at the phone. Lorraine had stopped using that phone when her hands got too weak. I assumed it had been lost or thrown away. She had switched to the tablet with the larger screen, the one I helped her hold during her final weeks. Floyd continued. She told me to keep it safe, to hide it, where Blake and Shelby would never find it. And she told me something else. He looked directly at me. She said, when the wolves come for Walt, give him this. He will know the password. My throat closed. Lorraine. 8 months ago. Planning for a war she knew was coming, while her heart was failing inside her chest. What is on it, Floyd? He shook his head. I never looked. She told me not to. But she said it was everything you would need. Everything. I reached for the phone. The screen was black. Battery dead. But the weight of it in my hand felt like more than glass and metal. It felt like Lorraine reaching across the divide between the living and the dead, handing me something she had spent months preparing. I plugged it into the charging cable on the console. The screen stayed dark for a long moment. Then a faint glow. The battery icon. Charging. Floyd stood. I will be here tomorrow morning. Early. We will go through it together. He paused at the door. She knew Walt. Lorraine knew exactly what was coming. And she spent her last year making sure you would have what you needed to fight back. Do not quit on her now. He left. The door closed softly behind him. I sat alone with the iPhone charging on the console. Screen still dark. But somewhere inside that device, my wife's voice was waiting. Speaking from beyond everything that had tried to silence her. And if Floyd was right, she had been recording it all. The iPhone screen glowed to life at 6 the next morning. Full charge. I had not slept. Spent the night in the producer's chair watching the battery icon fill 1 slow percent at a time, afraid that if I closed my eyes the phone would disappear, that it had been a dream, that Floyd had never come. But the phone was real. And now it was asking for a passcode. 6 digits. I knew immediately. Did not hesitate. 091489. September 14th, 1989. The night I first heard Lorraine sing at the Bluebird Cafe. The night my entire life changed direction. The screen unlocked. The home screen was nearly empty. No apps open. No messages. Just a single folder in the center of the display, labeled in Lorraine's handwriting style. For Walt, I tapped it open. Inside was a voice memo application. 47 recordings. The dates spanned 14 months, from February of the previous year through the first week of April, 4 days before she died. Each one was titled with a date and a short note. Some said good day. Some said strong morning. One near the end said last one. Maybe. My hand trembled over the first recording. February 12th. Strong day. I pressed play. Lorraine's voice filled the studio. Not the thin whisper of her final months. This was from over a year ago, when her heart was failing, but her breath still held enough strength to carry her words clearly. Walt, honey, I am starting this because I know what is coming. My heart is giving out. I feel it every day. But my mind is working just fine. And I need someone to know that. I need a record. Because I have watched Blake Thornton for 2 years, and I know what he is planning. And I know our daughter cannot see it. So I am going to talk. Every time I have a clear day, I am going to talk into this phone and tell the truth about what I want, about who I am, about what I see happening around me. This is my voice, my choice. And nobody, not Blake, not Shelby, not any doctor, gets to take that away from me. I pressed pause. Tears ran down my face. Her voice, clear and present and fierce. The Lorraine I knew. The woman who never backed down from anything in her life. I listened to 4 more that morning. Memo number 5. From March. Shelby called today. Did not ask how I was feeling. Asked about the catalog. How much are the masters worth? Whether publishing rights transfer automatically. She did not used to talk like this. Blake taught her to see $signs where songs used to be. Memo number 8. Good day, I told Floyd today. Gave him this phone. He cried. I told him not to worry. Told him Walt would know what to do when the time came. Memo number 12. April. Shelby came today. Brought papers. Power of attorney. Wanted me to sign everything over to Blake for, quote, management purposes. I said no. She got frustrated. Raised her voice. Said I was being difficult. Said Dad was confusing me. I am not confused. I know exactly what my daughter is trying to do. And I know who taught her. Floyd arrived at 7. He brought coffee and said nothing for a long time. Just let me sit with the recordings. Let me hear her voice over and over until the grief and the anger and the gratitude all blurred into one thing I could not separate. At 9, Floyd made a call. 20 minutes later, we were driving west on Broadway, toward a second-floor office on West End Avenue. Denise Wakefield answered her own door. 48 years old, sharp-eyed behind tortoiseshell glasses, brown hair pulled back in a no-nonsense clip. She wore slacks and a pressed blouse with the sleeves rolled to her elbows. And she shook my hand with the grip of someone who had spent 15 years in federal courtrooms before transitioning to private estate litigation. Floyd had served as audio engineer on a case she prosecuted 8 years ago, forensic audio authentication of wiretaps. They kept in touch. When Floyd called that morning and said he needed someone who fights like a dog and does not lose, Denise cleared her schedule. We sat in her office. Neat, organized, law books on every wall, a single framed quote above her desk. Justice delayed is justice denied. I told her everything. The lawsuit, the hearing, the asset freeze, the rumors, the fake medical bill, Lorraine's letter, and now the phone. Denise listened without interrupting. Made notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she held out her hand. May I hear them? I handed her the phone. She put in earbuds and played Memo 1. Her expression did not change. She played Memo 5. A slight tightening around her mouth. Memo 12. She paused the recording, removed one earbud. Looked at me. Mr. Brennan. Your wife did not just leave you evidence. She built you an entire case. These recordings establish capacity, intent, and state of mind over a 14-month period. They directly counter Dr. Patel's testimony. This is extraordinary. She scrolled through the memo list. Is there one where your daughter says something directly incriminating? Something the court can hear in her own voice? Floyd spoke for the first time since we arrived. Memo 43. Denise looked at him. You have heard it? No. But Lorraine told me about it. The day she recorded it. She said it was the one that would end everything. Denise set the phone down carefully on her desk. She did not play Memo 43. Instead, she looked at me with an expression that reminded me of Lorraine on the nights before a big session. Focused. Ready. Certain. That one we save for the courtroom. That one the judge needs to hear live. No preparation. No warning. Maximum impact. She stood. I am taking your case, Mr. Brennan. And we are going to win it. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? For the first time in 2 months, something other than grief moved through my chest. It felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Yes, I can do that. The black Escalade appeared 3 days after Denise took my case. I noticed it at the end of the gravel drive, that leads from Old Hickory Boulevard up to the farmhouse, parked just past the tree line where the property begins. Engine off. Tinted windows so dark I could not see inside. It sat there like something waiting. Patient. Deliberate. I stood at the kitchen window with my morning coffee and watched it for 15 minutes. It did not move. No one got out. At 7:45, I needed to drive into town for a meeting with Denise. I pulled my truck out of the garage. As I turned onto Old Hickory, I checked the rearview mirror. The Escalade's headlights flicked on. It pulled onto the road behind me. Maintaining distance. Following. My heart rate climbed. I told myself I was being paranoid. Nashville has plenty of black SUVs. Rich city. Music money everywhere. It did not mean anything, but it followed me all the way to West End Avenue, parked half a block from Denise's office building, and when I came out 90 minutes later, it was still there. Day 2. The Escalade sat outside the coffee shop on 12th Avenue South when I went for my usual Wednesday morning. Same tinted windows. Same stillness. I walked in, ordered coffee, sat at the window booth. The SUV remained for the entire 40 minutes I was inside. When I left, it pulled away from the curb and followed me back to the farm at a distance of exactly 3 car lengths. Day 3. Community college parking lot. I was not teaching anymore, but I had gone to collect some personal items Linda Forsyth said she had boxed up. The Escalade sat in the far corner of the lot, near the exit. I could see my own reflection in those dark windows as I walked to my truck. Whoever was inside was watching me watch them. I called the non-emergency police line that afternoon. There is a vehicle following me. Have they approached you directly or made physical threats? Not yet. Without direct contact or an explicit threat, there is not much we can do. We can increase patrols in your area. That night I could not sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights off, watching the road through a gap in the curtains. The Escalade was parked across the road. Engine off, just sitting in the dark like a held breath. I dozed off in the armchair around midnight. Woke at 3:17 to a sound that did not belong. A crash. Glass breaking. Coming from the studio. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and ran. The studio door hung open. The side window was shattered. Glass scattered across the floor, catching moonlight like broken teeth. Inside, the damage was systematic. My mixing console, the one Lorraine and I had saved 2 years to buy in 1993, lay on its side. Knobs snapped off. Faders bent. The rack of master tapes, original recordings from 30 years of sessions, had been pulled from the shelf. Tapes unspooled across the floor in long brown ribbons. Ruined. Irreplaceable. But the worst was the photograph. Our wedding portrait, framed above the console since the day we built this room. The glass was intact, but someone had drawn a thick red X across Lorraine's face with a marker. Deliberate. Precise. A message. I stood in the wreckage of our studio, flashlight beam shaking because my hands would not stop trembling. 30 years of music, of memories, of Lorraine, destroyed in minutes by someone who wanted me to understand what they were capable of. I called the police. 2 officers came, took photos, filed a report. Without security cameras, sir, it is difficult to identify who did this. We will increase patrols. The next morning, the mailbox held a plain white envelope. No stamp. No return address. Hand-delivered in the night. Inside, a single typed sheet. Drop it or lose more than a lawsuit. This is your last friendly warning. I held the paper with hands that still shook, stared at the words. Last friendly warning. Meaning the next one would not be friendly. Meaning the smashed console and destroyed tapes were just the introduction. That afternoon I went to the coffee shop. I needed normal. Needed a place that was not the violated studio or the watched farmhouse. I ordered my usual. Sat at the window booth. A man sat down across from me. I had not seen him enter. Mid-40s, wide shoulders, expensive leather jacket, hair cropped short, eyes flat and unreadable, like two stones pressed into a face. He did not order anything, did not smile. Just sat there, looking at me until I put my coffee cup down. "Smart men know when to walk away," he said. Quiet, almost conversational, like he was offering friendly advice. Then he stood, walked out, and climbed into the black Escalade parked directly outside the window. I sat frozen, coffee going cold, hands gripping the table edge. The shop continued around me, music playing, people laughing. A normal Tuesday afternoon in Nashville, while a stranger had just threatened me in public and no one noticed. That evening I called Floyd. My voice cracked when he answered. They broke into the studio, destroyed the console, ripped up master tapes, drew on Lorraine's picture. "They are looking for the phone, Floyd." Floyd was silent for 3 seconds. When he spoke, his voice was the calmest thing I had heard in weeks. "Good thing I made 3 backup copies of everything on that phone the morning after I gave it to you. One on cloud storage encrypted, one on a physical hard drive in my safe deposit box at the bank, and one more copy in a place they will never think to look." He paused. "They can break every piece of equipment you own, Walt. They can slash your tires and paint your walls. But they cannot destroy what they cannot find, and they cannot unhear what that courtroom is going to hear." I breathed. For the first time since 3:17 that morning, I breathed. Hank Morrison had not carried a badge in 3 years, but he never stopped thinking like a detective. That was the thing about 28 years with Nashville Metro Police. The instincts do not retire when you do. They just wait for something worth chasing. I called him on a Thursday evening, 5 days after the studio break-in. Hank and I had known each other since East Nashville High School, class of 1980. He had been the best man at my wedding. Lorraine used to cook him Thanksgiving dinner every year because he had no family of his own. He was at the funeral, front row, stone-faced, the only person who hugged me afterward and said nothing at all. Sometimes, silence is the most honest condolence. "Walt." His voice on the phone was the same gravel and whiskey baritone it had been at 18. "What do you need?" I told him everything. The lawsuit, the doctor, the threats, the Escalade, Blake Thornton. When I finished, Hank was quiet for 10 seconds. A long time for a man who used to interrogate murderers. "Give me a week," he said. Then he hung up. It took him 4 days. Saturday morning, Hank's truck pulled up the gravel drive at 7. He walked into my kitchen carrying a laptop and a manila folder thick enough to kill a small animal. He set them both on the table, poured himself coffee from the pot without asking, and sat down. "Your son-in-law is drowning," he said. "And drowning men do desperate things." He opened the laptop. Blake Thornton's financial life spread across the screen in documents Hank had pulled from public records, court filings, and what he called professional inquiries. The picture was ugly. 18 months ago, Blake invested $2.8 million in a cryptocurrency fund run by a college friend. Leveraged position. High risk. The fund collapsed in November. Total loss. Blake got margin called for the full amount. Hank scrolled through court documents. He is being sued by his own brokerage. Owes $2.8 million with no way to pay. His law practice revenue last year was $400,000. He has been using credit lines to cover minimum payments, but those are maxed. He pointed at a number. He is 3 months behind on his office lease at Pinnacle Tower, the same building where Cumberland Sound Medical Services was registered. Hank nodded. Same floor. Suite 712 is Blake's practice. Suite 714 is registered to Cumberland Sound Medical Services, LLC. Incorporated February 26th of this year. I checked the date against the calendar in my head. February 26th. 6 weeks before Lorraine died. He created a fake medical company 6 weeks before my wife passed away. He created it to generate a fraudulent lien against your estate. $94,000. Enough to create legal leverage for additional asset seizure once the court ruled in Shelby's favor. Hank closed the laptop. But that is not the worst part. He opened the manila folder. Inside was a single document. Legal formatting. Corporate letterhead from a company called Meridian Music Acquisitions. The title read, Memorandum of Understanding for Catalog Purchase. Hank pointed to the signature line at the bottom. Blake Thornton. Authorized representative. Seller. I read the document slowly. Meridian Music Acquisitions agreed to purchase the Brennan Music Catalog, all masters, publishing rights, and royalty streams for $4.2 million. Closing contingent on clear title transfer following estate resolution. The date on the MOU was January 15th. Lorraine did not die until April 8th. He was selling our catalog 3 months before she died, selling it to pay his crypto debt. Hank's jaw was tight. $2.8 million from the sale covers his losses exactly. The remaining $1.4 million splits between him and Shelby as profit. I stared at the document. The calculated precision of it. Blake had looked at my dying wife and seen a number. Had mapped out exactly how to convert her life's work into cash before her heart even stopped beating. How did you get this? Hank chose his words carefully. A contact at Meridian reached out to your lawyer, man named Marcus Webb, junior acquisitions associate. He said Lorraine Brennan never signed any consent for the sale. Said he flagged it internally 6 weeks ago and was told to keep quiet. He did not keep quiet. Marcus Webb. I will need to tell Denise. Already done. Hank pulled out his phone. Showed me a text exchange with Denise from that morning. She wants to meet Monday. Says this changes the entire legal landscape. Monday morning, Hank and I sat in Denise's office. She had the MOU spread across her desk, alongside the Cumberland Sound invoice, and a timeline she had drawn on a legal pad. Red circles connected dates. Arrows linked Blake's crypto losses to the formation of the fake company to the filing of the lawsuit. This is not civil fraud, she said. Her voice was flat. Hard. This is criminal conspiracy. Blake Thornton created a shell company to file a fraudulent lien. He signed a memorandum to sell property he did not own. He coordinated a defamation campaign. He orchestrated witness intimidation. And he did all of it to cover a $2.8 million gambling debt. She looked at me. We have more than enough to win your estate case. But I do not want to just win, Walt. I want to make sure they can never do this to anyone else. What do you need? She set down her pen. One more piece. Dr. Patel. If we can get him to admit Blake paid him to lie, we do not just win the civil case. We hand the district attorney a criminal prosecution on a silver platter. Can you get him to flip? Denise's expression shifted. Something like a hunter sighting prey. Blake just got arrested for breaking into your friend's property. He is sitting in a cell right now wondering who is going to testify against him first. Dr. Patel is going to read about that arrest in tomorrow's newspaper, and he is going to realize that Blake Thornton is not the kind of man who goes down alone. He takes everyone with him. She straightened the papers on her desk. Give me 1 week. Patel will come to us. The rumors that had been eating my reputation alive were not rumors at all. They were a product. Manufactured. Distributed. Paid for, with a wire transfer. And executed on a timeline. Denise showed me the evidence on a Wednesday afternoon in her office, 2 weeks after she took my case. She had hired a digital forensic analyst named Carla Newen, a former FBI cybercrime specialist who now consulted for private firms. Carla had spent 8 days tracing the online posts that destroyed my standing in Nashville's music community. What she found made my hands go cold. Every single post, Denise said, spreading printouts across her desk, originated from accounts created within a 72-hour window. She tapped a highlighted column on the forensic report. 16 accounts, all created between April 10th and April 12th of this year. April 10th. 2 days after Lorraine's funeral. Denise nodded. 2 days. Your wife was barely in the ground, and someone was already building a campaign to destroy you. The accounts were scattered across platforms: Facebook, Reddit Nashville forums, a local music industry message board, a neighborhood watch app. Each one appeared independent. Different usernames, different writing styles. But Carla traced the IP addresses and device fingerprints back to a single source. A company called Southern Image Consulting, registered in Franklin, Tennessee. Denise opened a second folder. Southern Image Consulting, 2 employees, registered as a public relations and reputation management firm. In reality, a digital smear operation for hire. She produced a bank statement. Wire transfer: $20,000 from an account registered to Blake Thornton's law practice. Received by Southern Image Consulting on April 9th. One day, after the funeral. One day, she showed me the communications next. Text messages between Blake and the firm's owner, a man named Derek Samuels. Obtained through legal discovery requests filed in connection with the fake lien investigation. The messages were dated across 3 weeks, starting the day after Lorraine's funeral. Blake to Derek, April 9th. Need reputation management on Walter Brennan. Nashville music community. Make it thorough. Make it fast. Derek's response: understood. Small town dynamics. I know how to work it. Timeline? Blake. 72 hours before the lawsuit drops. I want him isolated before he knows what is happening. More messages followed over the next days. Blake providing specific instructions like a director blocking a scene. Focus on the music community. That is his base. His identity. Take it away. Church crowd loves gossip. Plant seeds there. Something about financial exploitation. They will spread it themselves. Make sure everyone knows he is unstable. Grief-stricken. Not thinking clearly. It discredits anything he says in response. I read each message with the slow, sick recognition of watching someone I had once welcomed into my family methodically plan my destruction. Blake had attended Lorraine's funeral, stood in the receiving line, shook my hand, said he was sorry for my loss, and 24 hours later, he was paying someone $20,000 to turn my community against me. Denise produced one final document. An email. Blake to Derek Samuels. Sent at 11:43 in the evening on April 9th. The subject line read, Timeline confirmation. Start now. Before he has time to grieve and think clearly. By the time he realizes what is happening, the narrative will already be set. People believe the first story they hear. Make sure ours is first. I sat back in my chair. The email blurred in my vision. Not from tears this time. From something harder. Colder. He started this before I even opened the lawsuit envelope. Denise nodded. The smear campaign launched April 10th. The lawsuit was filed April 13th. 3 days later. By then, half of Nashville already believed you were guilty of something. When the lawsuit dropped, it just confirmed what people thought they already knew. She pulled up the timeline she had constructed on a legal pad. Red circles marked each date. Arrows connected them in sequence. April 8th. Lorraine's funeral. Blake attends. Shakes your hand. April 9th. Wire transfer to Southern Image Consulting. First text messages sent. April 10th. 16 fake accounts created. First posts appear online. April 11th. Posts gain traction. Comments multiply. Secondary sharing begins. April 12th. Narrative established in music community, church community, neighborhood. April 13th. Lawsuit filed. Emergency petition. Asset freeze requested. April 15th. Court hearing. You arrive alone, unprepared, already isolated. She set down the pen. This was not a family dispute that escalated. This was a coordinated military operation. Planned before your wife died. executed within hours of her burial, designed to leave you alone, broke and defenseless, before you ever saw the inside of a courtroom. Hank spoke from the corner of the office where he had been leaning against the bookshelf, arms crossed. There is more. The PR firm employee. Kid named Jason Wyatt. 24 years old. Derek Samuels owes him 6 weeks of back pay. Jason reached out to me yesterday. Denise looked up. Will he cooperate? Hank smiled, thin and sharp. He already gave me copies of the internal work orders. Screenshots of every post they created. The scheduling calendar showing exactly when each one was deployed. And the invoice Blake signed authorizing the campaign. His actual signature, Denise. On paper, Denise gathered the documents into a single stack. Aligned the edges with the precision of someone building a weapon. We have the financial fraud. The fake lien. The MOU. The intimidation. And now the coordinated defamation campaign with Blake's signature on the authorization. She looked at me. All we need now is the doctor. And I have a feeling we will not have to wait much longer. She was right. Because 3 nights later, Blake Thornton would make the desperate mistake that broke everything wide open. Floyd did not tell me about the cameras. Not at first. After the break-in that destroyed my mixing console and shredded 30 years of master tapes, he had come to the farm while I was at Denise's office and installed a system without asking permission. 4 wireless cameras, cloud-connected, motion-activated. Silent alerts sent directly to his phone and Hank's. He hid them in places only a sound engineer would think to use. Inside a dead speaker cabinet. Behind a ventilation grill, tucked into the cable run above the vocal booth. In the gap between 2 acoustic panels on the ceiling. He told me about them the morning after, sitting at my kitchen table. If they come back, he said, we will know. And this time, we will have faces. I wanted to argue. To say he should have asked first. But the man had spent 33 years protecting the quality of sound in that room. Now he was protecting what little remained of it. I could not fault him for that. 3 nights after Denise spread Blake's defamation timeline across her desk, Floyd's phone buzzed at 2:47 in the morning. Motion sensor. Studio. Northwest camera. Floyd called Hank first. Then me. By the time his voice pulled me from the shallow, restless sleep that had become my only kind, he was already in his truck. Someone is in the studio. I am 8 minutes out. Hank is calling police. Stay in the house, Walt. I did not stay in the house. I pulled on jeans and boots and drove my truck down the gravel path that connected the farmhouse to the studio building 400 yards away. No headlights. Engine barely above idle. The moon was half full, casting enough pale light to see the shape of a vehicle parked behind the studio's back wall. Not the Escalade this time. A silver BMW sedan. Expensive. Familiar. Blake's car. My chest tightened. Not a hired hand. Not the leather jacket stranger from the coffee shop. Blake Thornton himself. At 2:47 in the morning, breaking into my studio. I parked 50 yards back and killed the engine. Sat in the dark. Watched the studio windows. A flashlight beam swept back and forth inside, moving fast. Frantic. The movement of someone searching, not destroying. Looking for something specific. The iPhone. He was looking for the recordings. 4 minutes passed. Headlights appeared on Old Hickory Boulevard. Hank's truck, moving fast but quiet. He pulled up beside me, window down. He is inside. I recognized the BMW. Hank's expression in the moonlight was stone. How long? Maybe 5 minutes. Police are 12 minutes out. I am not waiting. Hank reached across to his glove compartment. Pulled out a heavy flashlight. The kind that doubles as a weapon. He looked at me. Stay here. Hank, be careful. He was already out of the truck. Moving toward the studio with the deliberate, silent steps of a man who had spent 28 years entering buildings where people did not want to be found. He had a key. I had given him one after the first break-in. He reached the door. Inserted the key without sound. turned the lock, and pushed the door open. From my truck, I heard Hank's voice boom across the dark Tennessee night. Clear, commanding, the voice of authority that never fully leaves a man, even after the badge is gone. Nashville Metro Police are on their way. Stay where you are. Silence from inside the studio. Then a crash. Something falling. Glass breaking. And then nothing. I could not stay in the truck. I ran. By the time I reached the studio door, Hank had every light on. The overhead fluorescence buzzed harsh and white over the wreckage of what used to be our control room. The console still lay sideways from the first break-in. Tape ribbons still covered parts of the floor. And standing in the middle of it all, frozen beside the open drawer of the producer's desk, was Blake Thornton. He wore dark clothes, latex gloves, a black baseball cap pulled low. His eyes were wide. Sweat ran down his temples. One hand was still inside the desk drawer, caught in the act of searching through papers and cables and old hard drives that had been there since the 90s. Hank stood 6 feet away, flashlight beam fixed on Blake's face. Neither man moved. "Evening, counselor," Hank said. His voice carried the calm satisfaction of a trap successfully sprung. "Might want to call your own lawyer now." Blake's mouth opened, closed. His legal training fought against his panic. He straightened slightly. "I want my attorney." "That is your right." Hank did not lower the flashlight. "But you are standing inside someone else's property at 2:51 in the morning, wearing gloves and carrying a bag." He nodded toward a black duffel at Blake's feet that I had not noticed. "So your attorney is going to have an interesting morning." Then Blake saw it. High in the corner, tucked between 2 acoustic panels, the tiny red LED of the camera, blinking steadily, recording everything. His face went white. The confidence, the calculation, the smooth mask he wore in courtrooms and living rooms and everywhere he went, all of it fell away. For the first time since I had known Blake Thornton, I saw him look afraid. Sirens grew in the distance. Blue and red light began flickering through the studio windows, painting the walls in alternating color. 2 officers entered 4 minutes later. They took in the scene. The broken window Blake had used for entry. The gloves. The duffel bag. The open drawer. Hank showed them the camera system on his phone. Live footage. Cloud stored. Time-stamped. Breaking and entering. Attempted theft. Potential evidence tampering in an active civil case. The older officer read Blake his rights while the younger one photographed the scene. Blake said nothing else. Just stood with his hands cuffed behind his back, staring at that red blinking light. The camera had seen everything, and everything it saw was already uploaded to a server he could never reach. They walked him out to the patrol car. As he passed me in the doorway, Blake stopped. The officers paused. He looked at me. Not with anger, not with defiance, with the naked desperation of a man who had just watched his last move fail. "This is not over," he said. Low. Almost a whisper. I met his eyes. Found a calmness in myself I did not expect. "Yes, it is." They put him in the car. The door closed. The sirens faded down Old Hickory Boulevard into the dark. Hank stood beside me watching the taillights disappear. His phone buzzed. He checked it. "Denise. She says get the arrest report to her by morning. She is filing a motion tomorrow." I looked at my studio. Wrecked twice now. But the recordings were safe. The backups were untouched. And Blake Thornton was sitting in the back of a police cruiser with his own phone in an evidence bag. A phone that contained every text, every email, every desperate instruction he had sent in the past 2 months. Phones never lie. They keep everything. Denise was right. It took 5 days after Blake's arrest. Dr. Rajesh Patel called her office on a Tuesday morning and asked to meet. Privately, urgently. His voice on the phone, Denise told me later, sounded like a man who had not slept in a week. We met him at a coffee shop on West End Avenue. Neutral ground. Public space. Denise chose the location deliberately. Somewhere a doctor would feel safe enough to talk, but exposed enough to feel the weight of what he was about to admit. Patel was already there when we arrived. Corner booth. Back to the wall. He looked like a different man from the composed professional who had testified against me 6 weeks earlier. No lab coat. No clinical authority. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were red-rimmed. A coffee cup sat in front of him, barely touched. The saucer spotted with liquid, where his trembling hands had failed to keep it steady. Denise set her briefcase down, pulled out a legal pad and a recording device, placed both on the table between them. Dr. Patel, thank you for meeting us. You understand I am recording this conversation? He nodded. Yes. I want it recorded. I need it recorded. This is Denise Wakefield, attorney for Walter Brennan, meeting with Dr. Rajesh Patel on June 11, 2024, at 9:17 in the morning. Dr. Patel has requested this meeting voluntarily. She clicked the recorder on. Its red light blinked steadily. Patel stared at it like it was a countdown. I sat across from the man who had stood in a courtroom and told a judge my wife's mind was broken, who had taken Lorraine's sharp, fierce, beautiful intellect and reduced it to a medical term: cerebral hypoperfusion, brain fog, incapacity, words designed to erase everything she said and thought and wanted in her final year of life. I wanted to hate him. Looking at his trembling hands and bloodshot eyes, I found I could not. Not entirely. Denise spoke first. Dr. Patel. Why are you here? Patel wrapped both hands around his coffee cup, as if trying to absorb warmth. Because Blake Thornton was arrested 5 days ago, and I know what happens next. He looked at Denise, then at me. Blake does not go down alone. He is the kind of man who drags everyone with him. And I am not going to prison for a lie I told because I was desperate. Tell us what happened, Denise said. From the beginning. Patel took a breath, shaky, deep. He approached me 7 weeks before the preliminary hearing. Through Shelby. She came to my office, said it was a private consultation. Professional, calm, like a business meeting. He described it with the halting rhythm of confession. Shelby had laid out the situation, the estate, the catalog, the need to prove Lorraine lacked capacity. She offered $50,000, $25,000 up front, $25,000 after successful testimony, plus a long-term consulting arrangement with Blake's firm. Patel's voice dropped. All I had to do was testify that Lorraine Brennan was cognitively impaired throughout the final 12 months of her life. That any wishes she expressed were medically unreliable. Denise's pen moved steadily across the legal pad. And was that medically accurate? No. Patel shook his head. His eyes were wet. No, it was not. Lorraine Brennan had congestive heart failure. Advanced. Terminal. It affected her body profoundly. Fatigue, shortness of breath, physical weakness. But her mind, he paused. Her mind was remarkable. Heart failure can cause cognitive symptoms in some patients, yes. But Lorraine was not one of them. She was alert, oriented, communicating clearly at nearly every appointment. He pulled a folder from the bag beside him, opened it on the table. Medical records, the originals. I could see Lorraine's name at the top of each page. Handwritten notes in the margins. These are my clinical notes from 24 months of treatment. He pointed to entries highlighted in yellow. March 15th, 2023. Patient lucid, alert, discussing end-of-life preferences with clarity. May 2nd. Patient oriented to person, place, time, engaged in complex conversation about financial planning. August 19th. Lucid, sharp, expressed clear wishes regarding estate. Page after page. Yellow highlights. Notes that proved what I had known every single day I spent beside her. Lorraine's heart was failing. Her mind was not. I could not stay silent. Did you even examine my wife properly? My voice came out harder than I intended. Patel flinched, looked at me directly for the first time. Yes, Mr. Brennan. I examined her thoroughly at every appointment. She was one of the most mentally sharp patients I have ever treated with her condition. I documented it faithfully, every time. His voice cracked. And then I stood in a courtroom and said the opposite. Tears ran down his face. He did not wipe them. I lied because I am $200,000 in debt. Student loans from medical school. My divorce settlement. Alimony. 2 daughters in college. I was drowning. When Shelby offered that money, I convinced myself I was not lying entirely, just emphasizing certain aspects, overstating possibilities. He shook his head. But that is not true. I committed perjury. I took away the court's ability to believe your wife's final words were real. I am ashamed. The coffee shop hummed around us. Normal people having normal mornings. Unaware that 3 feet away, a doctor was dismantling the lie that had nearly cost me everything. You took away more than the court's belief, I said. You took away my memories. You made a judge think that when Lorraine told me she loved me, when she told me what she wanted, when she squeezed my hand and said my name, that none of it was real, that I imagined my wife being alive in those moments. Patel could not look at me. I know. I cannot undo it. But I can stop it from succeeding. Denise slid the recording device slightly closer to him. Are you willing to testify to all of this in court? Under oath? Accurately this time? Yes. Everything. What Blake paid me. What Shelby instructed me to say. What the truth actually was. Patel straightened slightly. I understand I face medical board review. License suspension. Possible criminal charges for perjury. Yes, you do, Denise said. Her voice was not cruel, but it was honest. I accept that. Patel looked at me one final time. I do not expect your forgiveness, Mr. Brennan. But your wife deserved better than what I did to her memory. And you deserved better than what I did to your case. He slid the folder of original medical records across the table, along with a stack of printed emails. Communications with Blake and Shelby. Wire. Transfer confirmations. Everything documented with the meticulous habit of a man who kept clinical notes on every patient he ever treated. Denise gathered the documents, reviewed them with controlled intensity. When she finished, she looked at me. We have everything, Walt. Financial fraud, defamation campaign, breaking and entering, evidence tampering, bribery, perjury, falsified medical testimony, and 47 voice recordings from your wife proving she was competent, clear-minded, and knew exactly what she wanted. She squared the papers on the table. The hearing is in 10 days. And Walt? She met my eyes with the certainty I had come to trust. Your wife is going to finish this. Lorraine is going to speak for herself in that courtroom. And when she does, it will be the last thing Shelby ever expects to hear. The Nashville Tennessean called it the estate case of the decade. Channel 4 sent a camera crew. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters checking microphones and photographers jockeying for position by 8 in the morning. But for me, walking up those same steps I had climbed 2 months earlier with nothing but a thin folder and a prayer, this was not a headline. This was a promise I made to a woman who could no longer speak for herself. Denise walked beside me, calm, focused, carrying a leather briefcase that was anything but thin. 2 months of investigation, documentation, and strategy compressed into organized sections with colored tabs. She had prepared for this the way Lorraine used to prepare for recording sessions. Every detail planned, every contingency mapped, nothing left to chance. Inside, the courtroom was packed, every seat taken, people standing along the back wall. I recognized faces in the gallery. Chief Wilson, from the community college. Danny Schofield and Mike Parr, the producers who had avoided me at the coffee shop, now sitting together looking uncomfortable. Members of Grace Fellowship. Beverly Chen in the third row, clutching her purse with both hands, offering me a small nod when our eyes met. Hank Morrison leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, watching everything with the professional stillness of a man who had spent decades observing courtrooms from both sides. Shelby sat at the defendant's table. Different lawyer this time. Not Marcus Webb. Webb had withdrawn from the case 2 weeks ago, when the criminal investigation expanded. Her new attorney was a woman named Patricia Hale, competent but clearly brought in late, still reviewing documents as the proceedings began. Shelby wore a charcoal suit, hair pulled back, posture straight, but I noticed her hands. They gripped a pen so tightly her knuckles were white. And beside her, Blake's chair sat empty. He was in county lockup awaiting his own criminal hearing. His absence filled the room louder than his presence ever had. All rise. Judge Harrison entered. The same lean face, the same steady expression, but something had shifted in his eyes since the preliminary hearing. He had read the motions Denise filed. He knew what was coming. Please be seated. We are here for the final hearing in the matter of the estate of Lorraine Brennan. Thornton versus Brennan. Miss Wakefield, your opening statement. Denise stood, buttoned her jacket, walked to the center of the courtroom with the measured confidence of someone who had spent 15 years as a federal prosecutor before a single jury ever saw her doubt anything. Your Honor. This case was presented to this court 2 months ago as a concerned daughter protecting her mother's estate from an exploitative husband. Her voice carried clean and clear across the silent room. The evidence will show it was the opposite. This case is about greed disguised as grief. About a scheme orchestrated not by a grieving daughter, but by her fiancé, Blake Thornton, a man drowning in $2.8 million of cryptocurrency debt, who saw a dying woman's music catalog as his personal bailout fund. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Judge Harrison did not silence it. He was listening. The evidence will show that Blake Thornton signed a memorandum of understanding to sell the Brennan music catalog 3 months before Lorraine Brennan died. That he created a fraudulent medical company to file a false lien against the estate. That he paid $20,000 to a reputation management firm to systematically destroy Mr. Brennan's standing in this community. That he hired individuals to intimidate and threaten Mr. Brennan, and that he broke into Mr. Brennan's property to destroy evidence, an act for which he was arrested and is currently awaiting criminal trial. Denise paused. Let the weight of each accusation settle into the room. Most critically, Your Honor, the evidence will show that a medical witness in the preliminary hearing was bribed to provide false testimony about Lorraine Brennan's cognitive capacity. And you will hear from that witness today. Under oath. Correcting the record. She turned, looked directly at Shelby. Shelby did not look back. Finally, Your Honor, you will hear from Lorraine Brennan herself. Not through disputed testimony, not through second-hand accounts, through her own voice, recorded over 14 months, expressing her wishes with absolute clarity. Lorraine Brennan knew exactly what she wanted. She knew what her daughter was capable of, and she made certain that the truth could not be silenced. Denise sat down. The courtroom was still. Judge Harrison made a notation, looked at Patricia Hale. Miss Hale, your opening? Hale stood. She was shorter than Denise, composed, professional, but her opening was brief, defensive. My client maintains that her concerns about estate management were genuine. She loved her mother and wanted to protect her legacy. It lasted 90 seconds. When she sat down, the room knew it was not enough. Denise called her first witness. The estate calls Frederick Ainsworth, certified forensic accountant. Ainsworth was 60. Gray suit. Bifocals. The kind of man whose entire career was built on making numbers tell stories. He took the oath and opened a thick binder of financial records. Denise walked him through the Brennan estate finances methodically. Every transfer Walt had made during Lorraine's illness. Every payment. Every receipt. Mr. Ainsworth, in your analysis of the estate accounts over the 24-month period in question, did you find any transfers that appeared personal, suspicious, or unrelated to Mrs. Brennan's medical care? No. Every transaction corresponds with documented medical expenses, home health care, cardiac medications, equipment, physical therapy, hospice services. The spending pattern is entirely consistent with comprehensive end-of-life care. Denise then presented the MOU. Ainsworth confirmed the financial structure, the sale price, the debt payoff allocation, the timeline that preceded Lorraine's death. She presented Cumberland Sound Medical Services. Ainsworth confirmed the registration address, the incorporation date, the fraudulent invoicing for equipment never delivered. She presented the Southern Image Consulting payments, the wire transfer from Blake's account, the invoice, with his signature. Each piece of evidence landed like a hammer strike. Steady, measured, building towards something the room could feel approaching but could not yet see. Patricia Hale's cross-examinations were brief. She challenged methodology, questioned interpretation, but she could not challenge the documents themselves. They existed. They were authenticated. They told a story that no amount of legal maneuvering could rewrite. Judge Harrison reviewed each exhibit as it was admitted. His expression grew more severe with every document. When Ainsworth stepped down, Denise remained standing. Your Honor, the estate would like to call an additional witness, one who previously testified in this case and has now come forward to correct the record. Judge Harrison looked at her over his reading glasses. Proceed. Denise turned toward the courtroom doors. The estate calls Dr. Rajesh Patel. Shelby's head snapped up. Her pen dropped from her fingers and clattered against the table. Patricia Hale leaned in urgently, whispering. Shelby shook her head. Her lips moved but no sound came out, and across the courtroom, her face drained of every shade of color until it was white as paper. The courtroom doors opened. Dr. Rajesh Patel walked through the courtroom doors in a navy blazer over a pressed white shirt. No lab coat this time. No medical file as armor. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm and moved with the deliberate pace of someone who had made a decision that would cost him everything and had accepted that cost before he left his house that morning. His eyes found mine briefly as he passed the gallery. I saw it there. Regret. Not the performed kind. The kind that lives in a man's chest and keeps him awake at 3 a.m. Shelby watched him approach the witness stand. Her body had gone rigid. Patricia Hale was writing furiously on her legal pad, but her pen strokes looked desperate, not strategic. The bailiff stepped forward. Please, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Patel's voice was steady. He sat down, placed his portfolio on the ledge before him, folded his hands. Denise stood, buttoned her jacket, walked toward him with the measured rhythm I had learned to recognize as her closing distance on something she already knew the answer to. Dr. Patel, you testified in this courtroom approximately 7 weeks ago during the preliminary hearing. Is that correct? Yes. At that hearing, you stated under oath that Lorraine Brennan was cognitively impaired throughout the final 12 months of her life, that she lacked the capacity to make legal or financial decisions. Do you stand by that testimony? The courtroom went silent. Not a whisper, not a shifted weight. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Patel's shoulders rose and fell with one long breath. No. That testimony was not truthful. The gallery erupted. Voices overlapping. Gasps. The sharp intake of breath from 100 people simultaneously. Judge Harrison's gavel came down. Twice. 3 times. Order. Order in this courtroom. The noise subsided. But the energy in the room had changed. Shifted from tension to something electric. Every person in that gallery was now leaning forward. Denise continued as if the eruption had not happened. Why did you provide false testimony at the preliminary hearing? Patel opened his portfolio. Removed a stack of documents. I was offered $50,000. $25,000 before the hearing. $25,000 after. to testify that Mrs. Brennan lacked cognitive capacity throughout the period in question. Who made this offer? Shelby Thornton. Through her fiancé, Blake Thornton. Patricia Hale stood. Objection, Your Honor. This witness is making unsubstantiated accusations against my client. Judge Harrison looked at Denise. Do you have corroborating evidence, counselor? Denise accepted the documents Patel handed her. Held up the first page for the judge to see. Your Honor, these are bank statements showing a wire transfer of $25,000 from an account controlled by Blake Thornton to Dr. Patel's personal account, dated March 12, 2024. 3 weeks before the preliminary hearing, she held up a second document. And these are email communications between Dr. Patel and Shelby Thornton discussing the terms of his testimony, including specific language she instructed him to use. She read from the email. Emphasize chronic cerebral hypoperfusion. Make it sound progressive and total. The judge needs to believe she could not have understood anything during that period. Judge Harrison examined both documents through his reading glasses. His jaw tightened. Admitted into evidence. Objection overruled. Continue. Patel spoke without prompting now, the words coming like something he had held inside too long. Lorraine Brennan had congestive heart failure. Advanced. Terminal. It destroyed her body. Fatigue. Breathlessness. Physical weakness that made daily tasks impossible. But her cognitive function. He paused. Looked directly at Judge Harrison. Her cognitive function remained largely intact. Heart failure can cause brain fog in some patients. Lorraine Brennan was not one of them. He pulled more documents from his portfolio. These are my original clinical notes. Unaltered. 24 months of treatment records. They show a patient who was alert, oriented, and communicating clearly at the vast majority of her appointments. Denise took the notes. Flipped through highlighted pages. Read aloud for the court. March 15th, 2023. Patient lucid. Discussing end-of-life care preferences with clarity and specificity. May 2nd. Patient alert. Oriented to person, place, and time. Engaged in detailed conversation about estate planning. August 19th. Patient sharp. Expressing clear wishes. Acknowledging family dynamics with full awareness. She set the notes down. Dr. Patel, in your professional medical opinion, based on your actual clinical observations, was Lorraine Brennan capable of expressing her wishes and making decisions during the final 12 months of her life? Yes. Patel's voice did not waver. She was one of the most mentally sharp patients I have ever treated with her cardiac condition. Her body was failing. Her mind was not. Patricia Hale attempted cross-examination. Brief. Ineffective. She challenged Patel's credibility now that he had admitted to perjury. Dr. Patel, you lied under oath once. Why should this court believe you now? Patel looked at her calmly. Because I am providing my original clinical documentation. Because I am providing bank records and email communications. Because I am willing to face the consequences of what I did. And because the truth does not require you to believe me. It only requires you to read what I documented over 24 months of treating this woman. Hale sat down. She had nothing else. Judge Harrison made a notation. Looked at Denise. Anything further with this witness? No, Your Honor. But the estate has one final piece of evidence. Audio recordings made by Lorraine Brennan herself over a 14-month period. Recordings that corroborate Dr. Patel's corrected testimony and prove beyond any doubt that Mrs. Brennan knew exactly who she was, what she owned, and what she wanted done with it. She turned toward the courtroom doors. Standing in the frame, as if he had been waiting there all morning, was Floyd Bishop, 65 years old, white hair cropped short, wearing the same white vest he had worn in every recording session since 1991. His hands were steady. In one of them, he held a USB drive no larger than his thumb. The estate calls Floyd Bishop. Floyd walked forward. And for the first time in 2 months of fighting, I felt Lorraine beside me. Not a ghost. not a memory, a presence. As real as the sound of her voice that was about to fill this room, Floyd Bishop took the witness stand with the unhurried calm of a man who had spent his entire life working with sound and understood, better than anyone in that room, the power of what was about to be heard. He raised his right hand, took the oath, sat down, set the USB drive on the ledge beside him, small as a guitar pick, heavy as a verdict. Denise approached. "Mr. Bishop, what is your relationship to the Brennan family? I have been their recording engineer and audio producer for 33 years. Since 1991, I mixed every album Walt and Lorraine Brennan ever produced together. I was present at their wedding, at their daughter's christening, at Lorraine's funeral." Floyd's voice was steady, low, the kind of voice that fills a room without ever raising itself. "And your relationship with Lorraine Brennan specifically?" "She was my friend for over 3 decades, and 8 months before she passed, she entrusted me with something important. Tell the court what she gave you." "An iPhone, her personal device. She called me to the farm one afternoon in October of 2023. A strong day, clear mind. She told me she had been using it to record voice memorandums, 47 of them over 14 months. She said they contained her wishes, her observations, and her truth." "Did she explain why she gave it to you rather than her husband?" Floyd looked at me, something gentle in his expression. "She said Walt would not think to protect himself, that he would be too busy grieving to prepare for what was coming. She told me to keep the phone hidden, and she said, 'When the wolves come for Walt, give him this. He will know the password.'" Denise turned to the judge. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to play selected audio recordings from this device. They have been authenticated by forensic audio analysis and verified as unaltered." Judge Harrison nodded. "Proceed." Denise took the USB drive from Floyd, walked to the courtroom's audio system. A technical assistant helped her connect it. The speakers mounted on either side of the judge's bench crackled once, then silence. Denise pressed play, and Lorraine's voice filled the Davidson County Courthouse. Memo number 1. February 12, 2023. "Walt, honey, I am starting this because I know what is coming. My heart is giving out. I feel it every day. But my mind is working just fine. And I need a record. Because I have watched Blake Thornton for 2 years, and I know what he is planning." Her voice was clear, strong, present. Not the voice of a woman lost in fog. Not confused. Not impaired. Every word chosen with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime crafting lyrics. Several people in the gallery were already crying. I could not see them clearly because my own vision had blurred. Denise advanced to memo number 12. April 2023. Shelby came today. Brought papers. Power of attorney. Wanted me to sign everything over to Blake for management purposes. I said no. She got angry. Raised her voice. Said I was being difficult. Said Dad was confusing me. Lorraine's voice dropped lower in the recording. Intimate. Fierce. I am not confused. I know exactly what my daughter is trying to do. And I know who taught her. The courtroom was absolutely still. Judge Harrison had removed his glasses. His eyes were fixed on the speakers, as if he could see the woman speaking through them. Denise paused the playback, looked at the judge. Your Honor, the next recording is memo number 43, dated January 28, 2024, 10 weeks before Lorraine Brennan's death. It contains a direct conversation between Mrs. Brennan and her daughter. I want to prepare the court that the content is confrontational. Judge Harrison nodded. Play it. Denise pressed play. The audio quality shifted slightly. Background noise. A television murmuring somewhere distant. The creak of a wheelchair. Then footsteps. A door opening and closing. Shelby's voice. Clear. Unmistakable. Close to the recording device. Mom. I need you to focus. This is important. Just sign here and here. It transfers management authority to Blake. He will handle everything. You will not have to worry about any of it. A pause. Lorraine's breathing labored from her heart. But when she spoke, her words were steady. I already told you no, Shelby. Shelby's frustration bled through the speakers. The impatience of someone who expected compliance and was not receiving it. Mom, you are confused. You do not understand what you are saying. Just sign it. You will not even remember this conversation by tomorrow. The courtroom held its breath, and then Lorraine, her voice rising. Not loud, but absolute, unbreakable. Shelby, I remember everything. I am sick, not stupid, and I am recording this. The silence that followed lasted 2 seconds. It felt like 2 hours. Then, Shelby in the recording, panicked, angry, the sound of papers being snatched, a chair scraping, footsteps, a door slamming. In the courtroom, the real Shelby shot to her feet. Her chair crashed backward. Her face was white, tears streaming, her mouth open in something between a scream and a plea. Turn it off. Her voice cracked across the room like breaking glass. Turn it off. Turn it off. Judge Harrison's gavel came down. Hard. Twice. Miss Thornton, you will sit down and you will be silent, or I will hold you in contempt. The recording will continue. Patricia Hale pulled Shelby back into her chair. Shelby collapsed. Hands over her face. Shoulders shaking. The sound of her crying was the only thing competing with the speakers. Denise looked at the judge. One final recording, Your Honor. Memo number 47. Dated April 4th, 2024. 4 days before Lorraine Brennan passed away. She pressed play. Lorraine's voice came through one last time. Weaker now. Thin. Breathless. Each word costing effort. But present. Undeniably present. Walt. If you are hearing this in a courtroom, I am so sorry, honey. I am sorry you had to fight this alone. I am sorry I could not be there beside you. I closed my eyes. Tears ran freely down my face. I did not care who saw. Everything is yours, Walt. The farm, the studio, the catalog, all of it. You earned it beside me. Note by note, song by song. 35 years of making something beautiful together. That belongs to you, not because of a piece of paper, because of who you are. Her breath caught in the recording. A long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I love you. I have always loved you. From that first night at the Bluebird, when you looked at me like I had invented music. Play our song when this is over. Okay? Play it for me, and know that I am listening. The recording ended. Silence. Complete. Total. 200 people in that courtroom, and not one of them made a sound. The court reporter's hands rested motionless on her keys. Judge Harrison sat still, his glasses in one hand, his other hand pressed flat against the bench. Several jurors in the gallery were openly weeping. I sat with my eyes closed, my wife's voice still echoing inside me, filling the spaces that grief had hollowed out, saying the things I had needed to hear for 2 months, that she loved me, that she chose me, that what we had was real, and no one, not Blake, not Shelby, not a bought doctor or a corrupt court, could ever take it away. Floyd sat on the witness stand, his weathered hands folded in his lap, looking at me. He nodded once, barely perceptible, a nod that said, she did it. She finished it. And she had. Judge Harrison replaced his glasses. The silence in the courtroom continued for several more seconds as he reviewed his notes. When he looked up, his expression held something I had not seen from any judge in this case before. Not sympathy. not pity. Conviction. He spoke directly to Patricia Hale first. Counselor, does the defense wish to present any rebuttal evidence? Hale stood slowly. She glanced at Shelby, who sat motionless, hands covering her face, shoulders still trembling. Hale turned back to the judge. No, Your Honor. The defense rests. 4 words. The entire defense collapsed into 4 words. There was nothing left to argue, nothing left to spin. Lorraine's voice had filled the room and left no space for lies to breathe. Judge Harrison nodded, made a final notation. Then he set down his pen and folded his hands. In the matter of the estate of Lorraine Brennan, based on the totality of evidence presented today, including forensic financial analysis, authenticated audio recordings made by the decedent, and documentary evidence of criminal activity, this court finds the following. He paused. The courtroom leaned forward as one body. The petition filed by Shelby Thornton was fraudulent in nature and intent. It was orchestrated in coordination with Blake Thornton for the purpose of illegally obtaining control of estate assets valued at approximately $4.2 million. The court finds that Lorraine Brennan was of sound mind and clear intent when she expressed her wishes, both in recorded voice memorandums and in her last will and testament. His gavel came down. Once, all asset freezes are hereby lifted. The estate of Lorraine Brennan will be distributed according to her expressed wishes as documented in authenticated recordings and corroborated by medical evidence. The farm on Old Hickory Boulevard, all financial accounts, and the complete music catalog remain the sole property of Walter Brennan. Second strike. The fraudulent lien filed by Cumberland Sound Medical Services, LLC, is vacated and expunged from the record. Third strike. Furthermore, this court refers the following charges to the Davidson County District Attorney for criminal prosecution against Blake Thornton. Fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Breaking and entering. Evidence tampering. Witness intimidation. Filing of fraudulent financial instruments. Against Shelby Thornton. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Bribery of a medical witness. Perjury by solicitation. Against Dr. Rajesh Patel. Perjury. His cooperation will be noted for the district attorney's consideration. Judge Harrison looked at Shelby. Miss Thornton, please stand. Patricia Hale helped Shelby to her feet. Shelby's face was swollen. Mascara traced dark lines down her cheeks. She stood unsteadily, gripping the table edge. Given the severity of the charges and the evidence of coordinated criminal activity, this court is ordering your immediate remand into custody pending arraignment. Bailiff. The uniformed officer moved behind Shelby's chair. I heard the metallic click of handcuffs. Watched my daughter's hands pulled gently behind her back. Watched her wrists disappear into steel. The courtroom erupted. Not in chaos. In something closer to exhale, applause began somewhere in the back. Spread forward. Beverly Chen was crying openly, both hands pressed to her mouth. Chief Wilson from the community college stood, nodding. Danny Schofield and Mike Parr sat frozen, looking at each other with expressions I could only read as shame. Hank Morrison pushed off the back wall and walked toward me. His hand landed on my shoulder. Firm. Warm. The grip of 30 years of friendship. Saying everything words could not. I should have felt triumph. Vindication. The sweet satisfaction of justice delivered after 2 months of hell. Instead, I watched my daughter being led toward the side door. Her head was down. She did not look at me. Did not look at anyone. Just walked between 2 officers with her hands bound behind her back, the sound of her heels against marble, the only thing left of the confident woman who had sat at the plaintiff's table 2 months ago and called me a monster. I felt hollow. Not empty. Hollow. The way a bell feels after it has been struck. Still vibrating. Still full of sound. But the impact already passed. Denise appeared beside me. Her hand on my arm. Brief. Professional. But her eyes were soft. It is done, Walt. Everything she wanted for you. "It is yours." Floyd stood nearby, still in his white vest, USB drive back in his pocket. He met my eyes across the emptying courtroom and said the only thing that mattered. "She did it, Walt." Lorraine finished what she started. I nodded. Could not speak past the thickness in my throat. Outside, the June sun hit me like a warm hand on my face. Tennessee afternoon. Humid. Bright. The kind of day Lorraine would have called perfect porch weather. Reporters surged forward. Microphones extended. Questions overlapping. Denise stepped between me and the cameras. "No comment at this time. Mr. Brennan will issue a statement when he is ready." Hank and Floyd flanked me, walked me to Hank's truck in the parking garage. Away from the noise. Away from the cameras. Away from the courthouse where my wife had just spoken from the dead and saved everything we built together. Nobody talked during the drive home. The windows were down. Warm air moved through the cab. I watched Nashville pass by outside. The city that had turned its back on me for 2 months, now reduced to buildings and traffic and strangers who did not know my name. Hank dropped me at the farm, squeezed my shoulder. Floyd said he would come by tomorrow. They left. I stood in the driveway alone. The farmhouse quiet before me. The studio dark in the distance. Wind chimes on the porch, tinkling softly in the evening breeze. Lorraine's wind chimes, the ones she hung the summer we moved in. I walked to the studio, unlocked the door, stepped inside. The wreckage remained. Broken console, tape ribbons on the floor, but the shelf above where the console used to stand still held one thing untouched. A portable turntable Lorraine had bought at a flea market years ago. And beside it, a single vinyl record in a paper sleeve. Our first recording. 1991. A demo we cut at a rented studio on Music Row. Lorraine singing lead, me on guitar, Floyd at the board. The song that got us our first publishing deal. The song that started everything. I placed the needle on the vinyl. The speakers crackled. Then her voice. Young, strong, full of a future she could not yet see, but believed in completely. "Play our song when this is over." I sat in the dark studio surrounded by 35 years of broken equipment and unbroken love, and I listened to my wife sing. And for the first time since April 8th, the silence was not empty. It was full. 6 months later, I sat on the porch at Old Hickory Boulevard and watched a Tennessee December sunset paint the sky in shades of copper and plum. The air was cool but not cold, the kind of evening that whispers of Christmas without yet delivering it. Lorraine's wind chimes hung from the beam above me, singing their quiet song every time the breeze found them. I had not taken them down. Never would. The sentences came in September. Blake Thornton received 4 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and witness intimidation. The judge called it a calculated scheme driven by personal greed and executed with complete disregard for a dying woman's dignity. Shelby received 2 years of supervised probation and permanent forfeiture of all inheritance rights. No prison time. The prosecutor argued she had been influenced by Blake. The judge agreed, partially. I did not fight it. She was still my daughter. Dr. Patel surrendered his medical license for 18 months. Community service. Mandatory ethics retraining. He sent me a letter 3 weeks after sentencing. Handwritten, 4 pages. I read it once. Put it in a drawer. Not ready to respond. Maybe someday. The estate settled fully in October. $3.2 million total after legal fees and taxes. I kept the farm. Kept the catalog. Sold nothing. Instead, I took $400,000 and did something Lorraine would have done if she had lived long enough to see the need. Lorraine's voice opened its doors on the first day of November. The studio that Blake's hired men destroyed twice is now a free music education center for young songwriters from low-income families across Middle Tennessee. Floyd rebuilt the control room himself. New console, new monitors, new acoustic treatment, but he kept the original skylight. And he reframed our wedding photograph, the one with the red X. with the damage still visible beneath the new glass. A reminder, he said, of what we survived. Floyd serves as technical director. Beverly Chen handles scheduling and community outreach. Hank Morrison appointed himself unofficial security, which means he drinks coffee on the porch 3 mornings a week and watches the driveway with the vigilance of a man who will never fully retire from protecting people. In 6 months, 32 young musicians have walked through our doors. Kids who cannot afford guitar lessons. Teenagers writing songs in notebooks they hide from their parents. A 20-year-old single mother who sings like Lorraine did at that age. Raw and fearless, and full of something the world needs to hear. I teach songwriting on Tuesday evenings. Floyd teaches production on Thursdays. We do not charge a penny. Every Tuesday, before the students arrive, I sit at the piano in the corner of the control room, the same upright Lorraine used to compose on. I play something short, something she wrote, and I tell the empty room, "They are coming. Lorraine, wait until you hear them." The community came back. Not all at once. Not without awkwardness. But they came. Danny Schofield donated a rack of vintage microphones. The Grace Fellowship Choir performed at our opening night. Linda Forsyth from the community college called in August and asked if I would consider teaching again in the spring. I said I would think about it. Mrs. Chen brought flowers last week and stood in my kitchen for 20 minutes without saying much. Sometimes presence is the apology. Shelby sent me something 2 weeks ago. Not a letter, not a call, a USB drive in a padded envelope. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting on the label. One file inside, an audio recording. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. A song. Her voice. Acoustic guitar. Simple arrangement. The title embedded in the file metadata. Sorry. I forgot who you were, Dad. I listened to it alone in the studio. Midnight. The same room where Floyd had handed me Lorraine's iPhone 5 months earlier. Shelby's voice was different than I remembered. Quieter. Less controlled. The kind of singing that comes from someone who has stopped performing and started confessing. I did not call her. Did not text. Did not respond at all. But I saved the file. Created a new folder on the studio computer. Named it Maybe Someday. Put the song inside. Maybe someday I will open that folder again. Maybe someday we will sit on this porch together and listen to the wind chimes and talk about what happened. Maybe someday forgiveness will feel like something I can offer freely instead of something I have to build brick by brick. But not yet. Some wounds need time and silence before they can hold weight again. And to you listening to this story tonight, I want you to hear something that took me 63 years and one devastating loss to understand. God gave me strength when I had nothing left. When the legal papers arrived. When the accusations piled up. When my own daughter stood in a courtroom and called me a monster. God was there. Not in thunder. Not in miracles. In Floyd's knock at 11 at night. In Hank's steady hands. In Denise's fierce mind. In Lorraine's voice speaking from beyond. God works through the people who show up when the world walks away. This story taught me that love without protection is vulnerability. Lorraine loved me fiercely, but she also prepared. She documented. She recorded. She built a fortress of truth around our life together, because she knew that love alone cannot survive a courtroom. If you are caring for someone who is ill, if you are navigating estate planning, if you see family members behaving in ways that make your stomach tighten, do not wait for your own courtroom moment to realize you needed evidence. Document everything. Record conversations when legally permitted. Keep receipts. Install cameras. Write things down. Not because you expect betrayal, but because the people who betray you are counting on the fact that you did not prepare. God teaches us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. I was gentle. Lorraine was wise. Together, we were enough. And if you are sitting somewhere tonight feeling alone in a fight you did not choose, feeling outmatched and outspent and outshouted. Please hear me. You are not alone. God sees you. The truth does not expire. And sometimes the people we have lost find ways to fight beside us that we never expected. If this story moved you or taught you something valuable, please leave a comment below. Share what it meant to you. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the stories we share here matter. Your support helps us reach families who need to hear them. Share this video with someone who needs to know that protecting the people you love is not paranoia. It is devotion. Thank you for staying with me to the end. I know this was not easy. Truth rarely is. I stepped off the porch and walked inside, past the studio where warm light still glowed from the windows. Inside, Floyd was setting up for tomorrow's Thursday session. Through the glass, I could see him adjusting microphone heights, testing levels, doing what he has done every day for 33 years. Treating sound like it matters. Because it does. It always did. I stopped at the hallway photograph. Lorraine at 50. Laughing. Whole face lit with joy. I touched the frame the way I do every night. Good night, Lorraine. We did good. Did we not? Outside, the wind chimes answered. Soft, steady. The song she hung 20 years ago, still singing. And in the studio, a young woman's voice rose through the monitors. Raw, beautiful, fearless. Learning to use the gift the way Lorraine once did. Filling the room with something new. That is the legacy. Not the money. Not the catalog. Not the farm. The sound. Passed forward. Given freely. Loved into existence. Again and again and again. Some promises are worth keeping, no matter what they cost.